Hey, it's Amy with Ask a Christian. Got a question on the YouTubes this week. Let's tackle it now. The question is, why do parents and adults leave out parts of the Bible when talking to kids? If you are at all like me, which is highly likely because you are at least made of the same carbon material as I am, then growing up there was one phrase you hated to hear, and that was, "I'll tell you more when you're older." Because of this, when I'm talking to kids, especially when I'm telling them weird Bible stories, I try to err on the side of too much information rather than not enough. I do realize that this is a delicate balancing act because you don't want to destroy a sheltered kid's view of life in one fell swoop, but neither do you want to make the Bible so generic and boring that a kid grows up having no interest at all. For example, I feel like adults are pretty okay with the story of David and Goliath. We even have a song about it, how one little stone goes into the sling and the stone hits the giant Goliath and he falls tumbling down. Generally, that's where the song and the story end. Adults don't seem to like the gory part. They don't tell the part of the story where David goes up and gets personal, draws Goliath's sword, and has to chop off his head. I thought about this quite a bit actually, so please allow me to present 3 reasons why I believe adults leave out the good stuff. Number 1, I think that these parents and adults are rightfully trying to protect our children. So this doesn't apply to you unless it applies to you, but we do such a good job at protecting our kids that sometimes we neglect to prepare them. It's one of my main beefs with the Christian community, but I see our churches raising kids as if we were in peacetime when it is clear that we are at spiritual war. Let's only protect them until we can prepare them. I want to be frank, I know there's a lot of weird stuff and violence in the Bible, and I know that it needs to be presented in context. I actually want us to raise our kids as fierce warriors, but only warriors against sin and evil and oppression. They need to have the basis for understanding goodness and light and love so that they can know what they are fighting for and what they're fighting against. Number 2, I think parents and adults leave parts of Bible stories out because it is simply awkward. As a parent, if you haven't had long-standing open communication with your kids about sexuality and what's normal and appropriate, then it's really hard to talk to your 7-year-old about what the word whore means. I think a lot of biblical discussions require mature communication skills that, frankly, we just haven't developed even as adults. My challenge to Christian parents and adults who teach kids is that we would just become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, that we would take some of these taboo discussions and move them into everyday topics. Number 3, and this is the most embarrassing for me to admit, but I think a lot of people leave stuff out because they just have no idea why those stories are in the Bible. Most Christians just think it's history or maybe a cautionary tale, but most people don't understand the context of what stories are saying to that culture and how to apply it to our own lives. Of course, there are some stories in the Bible that have deep morality issues that come to light, like why did David think it was okay to lie to a high priest? Or why did Judah's daughter-in-law dress up like a temple prostitute and trick him into having sex? Or one of my favorites, why does God seem to allow the genocide of certain people groups? The Bible is full of really hard things to understand, and if we as adults don't do our research, if we aren't parsing these things out to figure out why this is in the Bible, then of course we're going to be uncomfortable talking to a young person about it. As I mentioned, this topic makes me particularly sad because I believe it's one reason why kids grow up thinking that the Bible is uninteresting. Adults leave all the juicy bits out. Now I would love to get your feedback in the comments section. Are you the kind of adult that gives a story in full gory detail, or are you careful to leave some portions out? And how do you know what's appropriate for what ages? Give us your best advice in the comment section below. Coming up on Ask a Christian, I want to take us back to some of the basics, and I am looking for some guests to bring on to give us some different perspectives. I know you get tired of me from time to time, so that's what I'm looking for coming up soon. And until then, I am wishing you joy and peace for your journey. Thanks, bye. Just a little shout out to my sister-in-law Courtney for my new t-shirt. However, I accidentally sent her the wrong reference text, so definitely gonna fix that before we go into mass production.